Hello, welcome to the program. Europe's energy dependence has been cruelly exposed by the war against Iran. Although efforts have been made to diminish reliance on Russia over the past 4 years, the disruption to supplies of liquefied natural gas in the Strait of Hormuz shows how vulnerable the EU really is. And the effects have already been real for European households, with inflation reaching 2.5% in March, that increase being driven by soaring energy costs. Well, to discuss this crisis, I'm joined by two guests here at the European Parliament. Both of them are members of the Committee on Industry, Research and Energy. Sean Kelly is an Irish MEP from the European People's Party. Welcome to you. And I'm here also with Thomas Pellerin-Carlin, a French MEP from the S&D, the Socialists and Democrats. Welcome to you as well. Thomas, we've heard, of course, this news about a ceasefire between the US and Iran. Who knows how long it will last, but we could still have longer-term effects of higher energy prices?
Yeah, so the illegal war that Donald Trump started in late February is actually the continuation of the 12-day war that happened in 2025. And that is something that now we need to grapple with. We know that at any moment, either Netanyahu or Trump can launch a new war. And we know that Iran would have the capacity to retaliate by closing the Strait of Hormuz. The Strait of Hormuz is critical because that's where 20% of the global oil supply and 20% of the global liquefied natural gas supply is going through. And therefore, any risk there leads to an increase of the price of gas and oil in Europe too.
And Sean Kelly, you've noted in Ireland the increase in prices for households when it comes to electricity. So there's been a big impact already, hasn't there?
Massive.
Yeah.
And we're probably more vulnerable in Ireland than most countries in the European Union because we do not use our own supplies. We have gas off our coast and oil, and we have a policy of leave it in the ground and import it for somewhere else. So we're dependent for our gas in particular from the interconnector off Moffat near Scotland. And that's a vulnerable position at any time. But now, of course, we don't have an LNG either. So we are really in a very vulnerable position. And as a result, we are open to any spikes that occur. And because most of our electricity is coming from gas in particular, and then the price of gas dictates the price of electricity for households. And now, of course, we are entering into the busy season for agricultural contractors and also, of course, for the hauliers. So the price of the pumps has a huge bearing on them. And the government will probably do something in the short term, but that is not sustainable. Really long-term solution is we have to look at independence in terms of energy in particular, energy security, food security, defence security. Those three securities are a priority for Europe, and if we don't tackle them, we'll always be in a vulnerable position because these spikes are going to happen again.
And on that whole geopolitical dependency, I'd like to quote a figure from the Institute for Energy Economics, which says that if the EU fulfills all of its supply deals for US LNG, so US liquefied natural gas, then the bloc could source as much as 75 to 80% of its LNG imports from the US in 2030. So that would actually be an increase compared to 2025. And Thomas, all of that means continuing to be dependent on a man, a Trump administration, that continually threatens the EU and NATO.
Yeah, and in recent weeks, we even had the US ambassador to the European Union blackmailing us, threatening that if the European Parliament would not vote the way the US administration wanted on the trade deal, then threatening us essentially by making LNG imports from the US to Europe more difficult. So we need to understand that we live in a world of bullies, and there are many bullies in this world. There is the Russian one, the orange American one, Khamenei, Netanyahu. So we live in that world of bullies. In that world of beliefs, we need to be able to rely mostly on ourselves as Europeans, but also to work with a global coalition of other countries that understand that clean energy is the basis for freedom. Those are places like Canada, like Chile, like Brazil, like Senegal, like South Africa, like India and Australia and other places in the world.
Let's talk more about the solutions then, because Sean Kelly, you've said here in a plenary session that whether we like it or not, we're going to need oil and gas for years to come, but we should be utilizing the resources within Europe. Do you want to elaborate on that a little bit?
Well, that's the first thing.
Yeah.
If you need something and you have it, you use it. And for instance, in my country, we have an extra gas field of Corrib, and we have oil and gas of Barry Row, but we don't use it. So that's the first thing. If you're going to need oil and gas, you should use what you have. And secondly, then you'd look at what are the alternatives. So the alternatives are France, Verdustem, have nuclear. Germany got rid of it, and now they're regretting it, but France was sensible. So nuclear and renewables. And we have a huge opportunity to develop renewables, but we must do it much quicker. This is the point. We should actually set a target of being energy independent by 2040, at the very latest. And if we do that, then we can work towards it and ensure that all those projects, wind, solar, geothermal, hydro, that contribute to the public good of energy security and energy independence must be prioritised for permitting and planning.
Just your reaction to that, Thomas. So what Sean is saying about actually using the resources that are untapped within the EU, including oil and gas if necessary, at the same time as developing alternatives. Is that a good way to go?
The biggest resource that we have and that remains untapped is actually renewable energy. We could be producing many times more wind power, solar power, or geothermal than we currently do. In some places like France or Spain, we even produce too much electricity today, or rather, let me rephrase that, we don't consume enough. For instance, in my region of Normandy, we have nuclear power plants that do not produce at full capacity because there is not enough electricity demand. So what we need to do now is to shift away from oil and gas that we do not have into electricity that we actually do have and are able to produce now and in the future. That means less gas boilers, more heat pumps. That means less petrol cars, more electric cars.
Yeah. Just to come back, Sean, to what you were saying about the actual improvements in delivery of renewables. You've talked a lot about permitting and planning. That's a key issue, isn't it?
That's holding up everything. Some projects take 10 to 12 years to go from thinking about them, putting them on the paper, to actually delivering. That's absolutely ridiculous. That should be reduced to 3 to 4 years. And that would give a positive signal to investors. They will come in and they will invest. They see it makes sense, it's needed, and then you will ramp up the whole area and you become independent, and prices will come down because you won't be dependent on the price of gas around the world or anything else. That's a huge area. But to do that, we also need to develop the grid. Now, there's a grid package which is going through Parliament right now. And if that is delivered quickly, then not only will we have a grid that will take the renewable energy that we create, but also we will avoid a position, which we have now, where a lot of the renewable energy can be utilised. It's curtailed, it's lost. Up to billions every year is produced because the grid can't take it. Now, we've recognised that problem, but now we must deal with it and get behind the grid package and ensure that we have proper interconnection between member states as well. They can't be living in little silos dealing with their own area like Viktor Orban would like to do in Hungary, etc. So that whole European model must become reality, and I think it will, because I see there's a change of emphasis now which is very welcome.
Thomas, your thoughts on those two key points, the sometimes slow permitting process and also what your colleague was saying about the grids package?
We have a lot of uncertainty now that has been generated by this new European Commission and the new far-right majority in the European Parliament on some files. We need to be clear. We have two options as Europeans. Either we go the Trump way and we fall into fossil fuel nostalgia. Either we go the electro-democracy way, because we understand that to be free, we need to rely on ourselves, and that means relying more on electricity. There is no clear majority in this European Parliament There is a majority that slows down electrification. That's what we see on electric cars, while there is another majority that tries to speed up electrification. That's the point that Sean was raising on the electricity grid. So currently, we have a, if you allow me to say, that a schizophrenic European Parliament with one part that goes for electrification and the other part that goes for fossil fuel nostalgia.
Your thoughts on that, Sean?
Yes, but
Schizophrenia.
I'm an optimist. I think once we put proposals to Parliament, they're logical and make sense and are good for citizens, I think we'll be able to build a majority. Obviously, as Thomas says, there'll be those who will be against, but I think that we can build a majority if we go about it in the right way and ensure that we're seen to support what's needed and what's necessary, and also, of course, to get across the message, what is the alternative? And the alternative isn't worth thinking about at this point in time, because we've seen crisis after crisis, and there will be more crises. When the Strait of Hormuz is sorted and Iran is sorted, something else will come along. So we either want to decide, we Europeans take control of our own future for the good of our future generations, or we just become dependent, as we have been over the last number of years, on powers that we have no control over.
Just a final quick point, Thomas. So earlier Sean was saying about a goal of energy independence by 2040. Is that realistic when you still have countries, Slovakia and Hungary notably, that have their own arrangements on Russian energy, for example?
The situation where we are now is a situation where we need to choose that if we want to be free, we need to make the investment in European freedom. That means the investment on clean energy. Viktor Orban, but also AfD in Germany, or Marine Le Pen and Jean Bala in France have a different political project than mine. They want, essentially their project is fossil fuel nostalgia that leads to the road to serve them, and they will rely, and they want to rely on the protection of the Russian, which is a political project that I'm fighting, but at least they're being coherent. The problem that I have is with the people that claim they want to be for European freedom, but do not invest in the clean energy that is the necessary condition if we want to remain free in the 21st century.
We'll have to end it there. Thank you so much to both of you. Thanks to my guests, Thomas Pellerin-Carlin and Sean Kelly. Thanks for joining us here for this discussion on Talking Europe.
Monsieur.